I'm Dr. Toby. Welcome to the Rehab Mobile channel. In this video, I want to show you how to run without hip pain if you're a runner. I want to help out those who may be trying to increase their mileage, who want to enjoy their run more, and who want to run without pain. So stay tuned for this video because we're going to show you some things that you want to know. If you've been wondering how you should be stretching, when you should be stretching, and before your run, after your run, what exactly you should be doing to achieve a more enjoyable run without hip pain, this is going to be helpful for you. By the way, we are a channel that helps you to stay healthy, pain-free, fit, and mobile. So hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all the content that we release to help you. All right, so let's get right into today's video. All right, so let's jump into what we're going to talk about today. One of the things you want to know if you're having pain when you're running, that there's a couple things you want to really know. And this is by no means prescriptive for you, meaning may not be a specific answer to exactly what you're particularly dealing with, because there's so many hip issues that can develop, whether it's a hip impingement, whether it's arthritis, whether it may be bursitis. And so these are going to be some general things you want to know. The best way to get specific help and information is for you to talk to a PT first. We specialize in all kinds of conditions in terms of hip and just throughout the entire body. And so if you want to talk to a PT first and get a specific plan for exactly what you need to deal with, you should talk to a PT first, where we'll help you draft up a plan, and you can hit that link in the description to get more information. But if you're wondering whether you should be stretching before and after your run, then most likely if you're having hip pain, you want to incorporate some type of stretch before and after. And I'm going to show you a couple of things you want to do. For people who are having pain in the front part of their hip, where it feels like there's a catching or a clicking or pain or discomfort, you might be feeling this during your run or after your run. And this is going to be helpful because you want to take what we call a stretch, mobilize, and stabilize routine and incorporate that into your run. So one of the things you want to do when it comes to stretching is you want to stretch out that hip in all directions. So first thing you want to do is stretch out that anterior part of the hip. And so what you're going to want to do, if the right hip is problematic, you put that right foot behind. And what you're going to do is you are going to push your hips forward, just like that. Push your hips forward. Keep that back foot straight. You're going to feel a little bit of a stretch in that calf, but stretch that hip out. You don't want to arch your back significantly. You do want to thrust those hips forward while keeping your pelvis tucked. And what you're going to do is reach that arm over and lean to the side. Now, when it comes to stretching, what we're really focusing on is that psoas, one of your major hip flexor muscles. And so what you're doing with the stretch is you are elongating it and keeping it from causing too much compression to your joint, especially as you start getting it activated in a repeated fashion. Even though running is very low impact, that repeated fashion of moving those hip flexors can cause some impingement to your joint. And so what you're going to focus on with this is you want to do some long duration holds. We're talking 20-30 seconds and doing it a couple times. This is good before and after. It depends on what type of running you're doing, whether sprinting or whether hurdle. So if you're like a high school athlete, this would be a little bit different in terms of the regimen as far as reps and sets. You don't want to, for someone who may be like a sprinter, for example, overstretching, or somebody who has to generate power in order to hop over a hurdle, you want to be careful of overstretching, which is why getting a specific plan, depending on what type of running you're doing, is going to be critical. But in general, these types of stretches would be helpful. So I stretched out that anterior part. I also want to stretch out the lateral hip capsule as well, or the inner hip capsule. And so what I'm going to do is a stretch where move that leg out kind of like a lateral lunge, and you really want to get that hip joint mobilized, right? So what I'm really doing is right here, I may want to hold if I'm stretching, but the difference between a stretch and a mobilization is that you really don't want to do too long of a hold. So if you're having hip pain and it's bothering you, stretching, mobilizing, and stabilizing are going to be helpful. So there are a couple of ways that you would incorporate this mobilization. So the first one we did was a stretch, but what makes it a stretch is really how long we're holding it for. So for a mobilization, if I want to really just get that hip in its optimal open position, I want to get it down to the side and almost let your foot come up off the ground a little bit, kind of stretch that groin out, some of those, that inner hamstring muscle. So those are some good things that you want to do as far as stretching and mobilizing. So if I were to mobilize the other direction, I would just do the same thing. I just wouldn't be holding it as long, just doing maybe a 10-second hold or 5-second hold on and off. And what that's gonna do is gonna help to increase the range of motion, not just necessarily stretching it out, and also gonna increase the mobility. So that's gonna be helpful. Now, when it comes to stabilizing, this is really important. You want your body and your muscles not just to be loose, you want them to be ready to fire and activate because of the repeated impact that you're experiencing as a runner. And so one of the exercises that you may wanna do to help stabilize is a simple lunge. So boom. Different ways that you can do it. You can go walking into it, or you can do a simple hold. If you're a runner, I might try to focus on that muscular coordination and that alternating movement. So I would recommend alternating that lunge position, because again, you're recreating that environment where your body and your muscles have to respond to provide some stability. You're also getting some great mobility here. So this is really helpful. So we showed you a stretch, mobility, and stability routine. The lunge is kind of getting into that stability. Another exercise you can do in terms of stability, which is really great, is a Romanian deadlift. A single leg, boom. And this is really great, again, for that stability, that entire lower chain, not just the hip, but also from the knee down to the ankle. Because again, though you may be having hip pain while you're running, that just may be the weakest link in that entire chain as far as your ankle up to your hip. So you want to focus on making sure you are keeping every element of the chain strong. The first part that hits the ground is your foot, then goes through the knee into the hip. And so somewhere in there may be some lack of mobility, tightness, or some type of lack of stability. And so these kind of things are going to be helpful for you. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, leave a thumbs up, give us a like, and let us know in the comments, what did you find most helpful? If you do have questions or want a specific video on what's going on with you, just leave a comment and we will definitely make you one. The other thing is that, thank you for subscribing, but we also have some resources that would be really helpful for you if you are somebody who is an active individual who wants to live a healthy life. As you go on and you've been having aches and pains, you've been feeling like, every 6 months, 3 months, or every now and then you're running into some issues as far as pain or discomfort, we have some amazing special resources for you. All you got to do is hit that button, the link in our description, talk to a PT first, and we'll send you some free resources. You can also text our office or call our office, hit pain, at 301-900-3226, and you'll see that information right there on the screen. But I just want you to know that there's some resources that can help you to live a healthy and active life without being limited by injuries, or without having to take time off, and without figuring out what stretch do I need to do to really be at 100%. So if you found this helpful, again, thank you for liking it, and share this with somebody who can also benefit from it. Thanks for subscribing, and see you in the next session.